If you have a smart, literate workforce, do you still benefit from those simple visual management things like a traffic light system? Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And today's video, it came out of a discussion that I had with one of my clients, and it was about, here at that factory where we were, we have a smart, literate workforce. We can do a lot with tables, graphs. We can give them much more information than when I worked in another factory, another country some years ago, where the education level just wasn't the same, and it was very difficult to get messages across. So over there, we needed to use a lot of visual instructions. We needed to do a lot of visualization everywhere in the factory to make clear what is happening. Luckily, over here, we don't need to do that. And then I told him, well, I think you should still do that. And that has everything to do with that it is simply easier to convey information quickly when you are doing it in a clear visual way. Now, that does not mean that you don't have to explain it. And that definitely still is a role for text as well. But I wanted to just go over a couple of things that is food for thought for you. Something to think about. How can you improve the ease of information, the accessibility of quick decisions in your factory, on your shop floor, but also in meeting rooms, anywhere where you are playing with information. And a couple of the examples here, I actually hope that you are not watching now on a huge, big screen television, because this camera, it can pick it up. But if you are now looking, well, for instance, through a phone screen or a tablet, or just have it somewhere minimized, I'm quite sure you're not able to read that. If you zoom it in, you probably will. I'll make a zoom for you, but please refrain from reading this action point message. It is so small that to me, this is like font size 20 or so. So to me, it's very nice and big. But because you are so far away, you cannot read it. This happens a lot. If you look at the size of signs next to the road, when you are passing by with 100 kilometers, 70 miles an hour, the signs, so that you can read them, they have to be huge, very little text. This is way too much, but you see it a lot happening in factories, because like this, we can get a lot more info there. And by the way, if you are looking at a computer screen and you are making your letter-sized or A4 presentation, your memo that you're going to put up, it is easily enough. This would be header size fonts for me when I'm printing, but not when I'm walking by. I can only read this when I'm standing still, relatively close. But just using a couple of big words, it's not the same. My daughter was joking to me when I prepped this video, why are you putting it all wrong? But it took you a couple, well, maybe not a couple seconds, but at least a second or so to read these and say, oh, wait a minute, but they are the wrong way. Just to point out, big text, even though you can read it more easily, it doesn't have the same direct impact on your brain that you do have when you're just using the traffic light colors. And these being used, they give an immediate feeling. Okay, maybe not to those people who are red-green colorblind, but even there, if you use the correct colors, it is immediately good or bad. Direct, because we've been trained on that difference in red and green, and you can add yellow or orange in the middle. People see it everywhere, immediately react to it. If you have, and that will not be red or green, it will be maybe something like low level alert for a tank that is almost running out of material. You will have a little light that blinks and some text next to it. If you have 5 of those indicator lights with 5 words or small sentences next to it, it already loses its value. When you have 1, big lamp, and next to that lamp, you can even put it relatively small there, there is a bit of explanation text, then you are doing exactly what you want to be doing with visual management. Because that is the other thing here. Well, how do you draw that? But this greasing nipple that you can use to grease your machine, it has a yellow indicator around it. But what does that mean? And that is one of the things, when you start to use visual standards, you do have to explain what the standard means. Maybe you have a small text here, maybe you have an instruction. I would actually put the most key word of that instruction into this visual indicator at any time. If a person is thinking, well, but what was yellow again? You can look here and it says weekly, because this is on your weekly board, your weekly route of lubricating your machines. And maybe your blue indicators around a grease nipple, they are for your monthly greasing route. So like that, it is very easy to see what am I doing today, and then as soon as you spot the rhythm, it is like, oh yeah, all the yellow ones are for me today and all the blue ones as well, because it's a weekly and monthly together. But sometimes you are just doing the weekly, only the yellow ones, you ignore the blue ones. Now, that idea, that is something to keep in mind, right? Every time that you are thinking of what is a good visualization of my data, of my information that I want to use in a performance meeting, when running a line, when getting the indicators for stock levels, all kinds of things, it is about being able to quickly see the pattern. So immediately you see good, bad, need to do something, don't need to do something. These are the same color, so they probably fit together. You really have to sort of think like a baby who puts the right shape into the right box, who puts the right color into the right ring of that color. This is stuff we learn from a very early age, and that is because our mind is good in it. Another example that I specifically want to share with you, because I see it going wrong on so many occasions. I made it maybe a bit oversimplified here, but I will go into that, and it's these KPI graphs. Now, on the left is a nice computer-generated graph that we often see. If you put it just into Excel, this is my line, this is my values, so my target line and my values. You put it in, it's very easy to get a graph like this. It is already a bit harder to get a nice double-colored graph. There are some tricks for it, you can automate it, but it's not a standard way of doing things. But this here, on the one hand, it gives you all the information. You've got what is on the axis, you've got the time, you've got the norm, you've got the data points. They are nicely linked with a line, even though in formal graph theory it's not always clear that those points should be connected by lines. But let's leave that discussion out of it. More importantly, nice clean graph. Not a lot of ink, good white space, easy on the eye, and you can just follow the trend. But you don't know if it is good to be on top of the norm or lower than the norm. So of course, when you know which KPI it is, and when you have trained at the top left graph, always we want to have it higher, then it can work. I've also worked in companies where we would always make the graph in such a way that lower is better. Always. So everything, we did not have the percentage of OEE, we would have the percentage of time lost. We would not have the percentage of good product, we would have the percentage of defect. So everything had to go to zero. That solves, by the way, a whole bunch of things. And it's quite a good system if you don't want to go to the next visual level. And that is just do the same data, but make this conditional. So when you are under your target, it becomes red. That is, in this example. We can also imagine that you have a target that needs to be as low as possible. So if it would be higher, it would be wrong. And you just flip the color scheme. So then everything that was over the target becomes red and everything that stays under is green. For instance, when it is percentage of breakdowns or defects, now this graph is something like OEE or volume produced. The higher the better. It is immediately obvious from this graph that our last day or week was okay and yesterday we had a problem. And before we had a whole bunch of days that were okay, and then before that we had a couple troubled days. Immediately obvious where to focus attention. Now I told you that in the visual spectre, this is a very simple one. What I mean is, what I also see from time to time is a very beautiful KPI graph or a very nice dashboard where, for instance, we have a whole bunch of green lines and a whole bunch of blue lines and a whole bunch of red lines, and with that I mean the machines. So all graphs relating to machine A, they're all colored green. All graphs relating to machine C are all colored red. Yeah, well, it's nice. It quickly ties them together, although I think just your spatial layout will do that plenty good. But then you get the big red graph. And I will assure you that anyone not daily looking at such a graph, right? Like not really in that team or meeting, but just a manager walking into that room will think, whoa, machine C, we need to get there right now, even though it was just the color we gave to that line or cluster of lines. And that is the danger of knowing that there are these visual basic standards that many people use, of touching that in the wrong way or putting very nice logos into your graph. Now that is the type of visualization, the colors, the logos, the brilliant lines, the extra data written everywhere, or putting 4 different fields and lines into one graph that together explain the story of a line. All of that almost always just detracts from your visualization. You want to have, especially when we are talking about a performance meeting, like a daily meeting or a performance control system meeting, a stand-up, you want to have that quick assist basically from your KPI board. Do I need to discuss this part or not? Is it in control or do we need to do something? Are we gonna make next shift's production, next day's production? Where are we on track? Where do we need to act? With this one, you know quite quickly, always the last bar, that's green. Probably we have other priorities today. And somewhere else there is also a graph that has red for the last 2 or 3 bars. That is going to be where we are going to focus. This will tell you the same info, but not as quickly. We can have indicating words, but this is quicker. And especially when we are using boards to get this quick overview, it might be tempting on your line and action boards to put something like this. And with an action, that's okay. But if you have anything that should be a direct indicator of how well your line is performing today, something like that is really not helping you. Go for quick colors, go for quick association, make your own pattern where there is no right, wrong thing or some other type of visualization that we have sort of in our common understanding. Then you make your own logic. People will catch on to that very quickly. It really works. but don't make it beautiful. Make it a logical system, a quick way to get the info that you want to get. So there's a whole world to explore in visual management, but that to me was the thing I really wanted to share with you this week. Make sure that you use those visual cues in a good way to quickly get the overview, and you will get much more use out of your action boards, your management boards, your daily meetings, your reports and dashboards. They should give you the quick overview, not the details. That comes later. I hope you liked that. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. Also, join in the discussions. We've had some very nice active discussions over the last weeks. I really like it. So keep asking me stuff. Get the discussions going. You'll get more of these videos. Also, this didn't come out of a viewer discussion, but it did come out of a nice discussion with one of my newer clients. So get me interacting and I will get you more content. For now, I wish you the best of luck in your continuous improvement journey, and as always, don't forget to enjoy that journey.